Now, we know the COP talks continue in Glasgow. An interesting intervention today from the Environment and Energy Minister and now Treasurer, Matt Kean in New South Wales.
Well, it certainly was. Bit of a good scoop from you, Kieran. Basically, in this interview, Matt Kean reveals that New South Wales has signed a document pledging with other countries, the federal government's not doing this, federal Labor's not even doing this, to, and let's have a look at it here, work towards all sales of new cars and vans being zero emission, that means electrical, globally by 2040, and by no later than 2035. Have a listen.
Is that correct? Will the government be signing up to that?
Kieran, I've already signed the document and we're just working through with DFAT to get that formalised. But yes, New South Wales will be a participant in this. In fact, because of the policies we've put in place, we're already well on target to hit those ambitious targets set by the COP. In fact, we'll have 50% of all new cars sold in New South Wales being electric by 2030.
And here's what they've been asked to sign. Here's what Matt Kean has signed. But it's before DFAT. The reason it's before the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade is the Belt and Road Deal legislation, which requires state governments signing up to such things to be before that department. So it's actually, as I understand it, been with DFAT, Kieran, for 2 weeks, in front of Marise Payne, Foreign Affairs Minister. She'd have to sign off on it. That means Scott Morrison would have to sign off on it. I've been to Morrison's office and said, are you going to allow it? And it's not only New South Wales. Apparently South Australia, Tasmania and WA want to sign on to this. Once again, I repeat, the federal government doesn't want to set a target on it. Federal Labor doesn't want to set a target on it. 4 state governments do. And it's like beginning to be a bit like the pandemic, this, isn't it? The state governments are bolder with their promises or are more in charge of signing up to these things than the federal government or the opposition are willing to be. And of course, Marise Payne, she's deciding on this, whether New South Wales can do it, who is her partner, Stuart Ayres, none other than the Deputy Liberal Leader of New South Wales, the bloke who shafted Matt Kean for the Deputy Liberal leadership. So, small world, isn't it, Kieran?
It is a small world. And before we move on, this never ceases to amaze me, the fact that Matt Kean, a Liberal moderate and the most powerful Liberal moderate in the New South Wales government, the Treasurer now, he doesn't mind a scrap, does he? And he sits in stark contrast with moderates in other jurisdictions, including in the federal parliament, I'd have to say.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Sharma, Andrew Bragg, Katie Allen, Jason Falinski, they all have a go on this, but they don't take it to the wire as Matt Kean does. I guess they've all got ministerial ambitions. But he does seem to like poking Scott Morrison in the eye, and so did Gladys Berejiklian when she was the leading moderate in that government. She would be fighting with Morrison all the time and then they'd make up and appear together. So this continuing tension in the New South Wales Liberals, and of course Scott Morrison is in the New South Wales Liberals, but he's sort of the leader of the centre-right faction.
Yeah, well, it's a broad church, as they say.